Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for the Crew in Conversations. I'm Janine Brabosier. I'm Director of the Crew. And today our session is about the behind the scenes, the operations side of hospitality, which is really what keeps it all going and in motion. I guess the three panelists we have today are all top in their field. All of them, they have decades of experience between them, and what they've experienced over the last few weeks is adapting their businesses so quickly that it's almost been to the point of working in brand new businesses. And we're fascinated in how they've been able to adapt like that, and what skills they've needed to upskill, to kind of draw on what their hospitality expertise has been through their years of experience, and what's really come to the fore for them. Both Kylie's and Chris have got years of kind of background in various parts of operations, and I think what's interesting to us is what they've been able to draw on that has really sort of stood them in good stead so far. But then in the next phase of what we're about to go into with businesses having to run multiple revenue streams at the same time, or in the case of Chris's work at QT, mobilizing into a brand new start, I suppose. So in order to introduce them, Kylie Ball, who will be familiar to many of you. Kylie has been operations manager at Key, and so many places that everyone has held up as being sort of exemplars of the best of hospitality. She was only a month or two into her new role as general manager of the Mateo Group when the pandemic hit, which was really a baptism by fire for her. She's always been passionate about improving the industry to attract and mentor talent, and she's worked with groups like Women in Hospitality and been very active in that area. Chris Morrison, who is certainly very familiar to me as my husband, but hopefully familiar to some of you as well, is currently Group Wine Director at QT Hotels, and has 20 to 30 years experience, sorry to age you, in hospitality as a sommelier for all kinds of establishments, also including Key. Like most of his industry colleagues, Chris was stood down and is waiting until QT's restaurants can reopen. But he's also an author and wine writer and educator, and has been tapping into some of that knowledge while he's waiting to be reactivated. And finally, Kylie Stadden. Kylie is operations manager at the incredible Attica. Last week we had her partner Ben Shuri talking to us about how they've transitioned their business, which has been an extraordinary transformation. They've transferred what was arguably Australia's finest diner and most awarded restaurant into a super busy takeaway and delivery business, cooking hundreds of meals every week, as well as a soup kitchen, selling products like t-shirts. So Kylie has had to adapt alongside Ben extremely quickly and make sure that all of that actually is operational. So I think I'll leave it to Sal to start asking the three of them questions. But what we really were hoping everyone could get out of today is those really tangible skills that these three have either upskilled in very quickly and know will take them into that next phase of where their venues are going, and also the things that they've drawn on that they've learned from years of experience and knowledge. So I will leave it to Sal to start asking them the tough questions.
Thank you, Janine, and thank you to our panel for being here today for the second of our industry forums. We're just trying to draw out some some actions and some learnings from what people have been up to at this sort of difficult time for everybody in the industry, and in many other industries as well. So we hope that you do find these sessions useful. And please feel free as the audience to ask questions, and to do that you can use the chat or the Q&A buttons at the bottom of your screens, and you just type your question in, and we'll come to those towards the end of the session. And if there's a particular person you want to ask, just sort of say, Chris, blah, blah, blah question, and we'll try and put it to Chris if we have enough time, which we should do. So I'm going to start with Kylie, go in alphabetical order. We've got sort of two Kylies and a Chris, so it'll be Kylie Ball, or Kylie B and Kylie S. And Kylie, as Janine said, she sort of had a bit of a baptism of fire, if you like, as she sort of entered her new role as General Manager of Mateo, because it was literally weeks before the shutdown happened. So there was a lot of actions and that she needed to take very quickly with the business to try and keep it ticking over. So my first question's to Kylie. While it has been super difficult, what have you done personally and as a team to get through this? And how have you been able to use the downtime, which is about to come to a very sudden end for you at Mateo as you look to open again soon? How have you been able to use that time really productively?
I think it was pretty hard initially, especially as you say, I'd sort of been away for restaurants for a couple of years, just doing lots of different projects, still very involved in hospitality, but like to go back into a great role where I was super excited about, like two very successful businesses, and we're planning to open a hotel down south, which we still are. So literally 4 weeks in, to have that all sort of just gone and not know what was going to happen next, and having my own mortgage, and it was pretty stressful, but I think it was really great as a team. We all just sort of really supported each other, and I think well, it's not the best thing, but the thing I keep thinking is that we're all in it. So it's not, it's not like just I lost my job or something. We're all in the same situation. So we've just sort of really we've got lots of WhatsApp chats going on with all the team. One of the hardest things, and for me also too, just being only 4 weeks into the role, I didn't really know the team that well. So it's it's not been difficult, but I know if I was at Key and that happened, like you've got so long those people, so I didn't know really their personalities, and then just having to adapt to the team, and a lot of them are struggling because we I think we had 60 staff, and now only 10 of them are on JobKeeper because they're all Italian. So that's also just been having to deal with that, and having to keep in touch with people who have just been stood down and are getting no support from the government, no support from us apart from the chefs been dropping food around to them, and or we're just having conversations, just trying to I keep updating on the WhatsApp if some legislation's changed or there's some training things that they could be doing. So, and I guess I have also just been resting, spending a lot of time with the dog, exercising, as you say, because I think I do know it is going to go full throttle. And last week we started takeout last week, so I was in the restaurant handing out pizza, which I never thought I'd be doing that, but it's a job, and I'm happy to do anything. And I think we're all probably in the same boat. Like literally, we've all just got to do what we need to do right now to get the businesses up and running. And we were fortunate; it was a really successful weekend. And then now with the new phase 1, which we'll introduce from Friday, and I think, as I just mentioned before, we opened up bookings 3 hours ago, and we've got 381 guests already booked. So we've just had to be very clever about that. Like it's, you know, certain time slots. So in at 12, next one's at 2, next one's at 4, and putting set menus. So we've just been creative with the chef, obviously looking at what's going on that menu for food costs and what are people are going to, you know, it's a family area in Double Bay where we're opening, so we need to be able to cater to, so for example, when the session where we've got the families in, we're not putting minimum spends on that because we want to look after the community as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been an interesting time, but I'm definitely seeing the light. And also for me personally, I've been able to use this time to really focus on women in hospitality. And I think all of us have, because we've all had time, whereas, you know, in the past, you know, it's hard when you've got work or, you know, people have got families or they're, to really sort of invest time. So I know as a board, we've really focused and upped our ante of how the actual whole women in hospitality looks.
I'd like to actually, can let me cut in there for a minute, because just one of the things Carly does, she's on the board of Women in Hospitality, and they have a very, very proactive mentoring program, which Carly, you might sort of, and this actually draws on all of your experience in hospitality over many years. You've been very active in supporting younger people in the industry. And obviously with Women in Hospitality, it's particularly younger women who are coming into the industry as well. And I just wonder what the impact of the COVID-19, the pandemic, has been for the people and those networks that you're in touch with, and what have you been doing as a group to keep those lines of communication and contact open?
Yeah, so we do have an incredible mentoring program, which we actually relaunched in February, just prior to all of this. So we matched up 10 mentors and 10 mentees, and then obviously went into the pandemic. So what they've been doing is just Zooming, like still having their conversations that they would have been having in person or over the phone, probably more so than they would have if this hadn't happened, just because people are just craving information or just need support. And I think even our mentors are getting a lot out of it from the mentee, just learning like about what they're doing in this predicament as well, because we're all in it. So we also just launched in Brisbane, or Queensland, sorry, prior to shutdown, and so they're doing a lot of, they're about to do an event, I think in the next few weeks, about COVID-19, where people can Zoom in and ask questions. We've got a COVID-19 page on our website. So yeah, we've just been trying to stay in touch basically with our community, with our members. And I guess me personally, through Appetite for Excellence and Inspired, I got to know a lot of sort of young chefs and waiters. So I just have personally just been sort of touching base with them. Yeah, and I'm in charge of events for Women in Hospitality. So we've had time to sort of really brainstorm. So our next, we're doing our second intake of the mentoring program in August. So we're just working on how that's going to look now. So that will be via Zoom. And so that will be in Queensland. We also started up in WA as well. So what we're you know, just as an idea, we're looking to, Claire from Bloodwood is on our board. So we're going to send food and a little drink out to every member, so we can all, everyone who wants to come and sort of, you know, attend the launch. So and then they're going to do the same in Queensland. So yeah, we're just sort of doing what we can to keep the community together, hospitality going.
And I think that's really, really important. And it actually brings me to Chris, who, as we know, is sort of a sommelier who's currently not a sommelier on the floor, but has sort of a wealth of experience in that area. And I just wonder, Chris, what practical things have you and your colleagues and your team been doing to keep in touch with the business, with the industry and with each other in this period?
Yeah, thanks, Al. There's been, because we're such a large company, and I guess with Kylie and KB and myself, we're all different kind of parts of the industry in terms of size. So we have, you know, Attica being such a great flagship restaurant for Australia. We have Mateo as a group, and then you have us as kind of almost like large corporate hospitality with a hotel and entertainment division and 1,000 employees, and a large portion of those made up by casual workers on visas as well. So staying in touch for me has been really about making sure that what I'm talking to in my teams is being signed off by the company.
Right.
Because with such a large scale organization, there's so many hoops to walk through in terms of anything we're activating around COVID, entitlements, JobKeeper, stand downs. And at the moment, they're reviewing those currently and are hoping to get people slowly back to work through stage one. But still, as Janine was saying in her opening, that we still need our restaurants to open. But I think where we are at the moment in terms of keeping in touch is, as a community, the sommeliers usually are pretty good and have been up until this point. What they're doing more so though now is incorporating vignerons and winemakers and wine distributors. So the broader wine community is being included, as opposed to that little bubble that sommeliers love to build, which is just them talking to themselves. And I think that's probably the most healthy thing that's emerged out of this first, and we are in the first phase of what is going to be a very much a changed on-premise industry, is that it's becoming a little less tribal,
Right.
as becoming a little bit more collegiate. And I think that connectivity that you're talking about is the big driver of it. So I guess at the moment, it's how we stay in touch, not just through our work, but checking in each other, because hospitality was always already, and all of you on this call know, mental health was always a massive issue for us. And if you isolate someone in hospitality socially, you're isolating them professionally, because they're usually combined. I mean, most people in hospitality don't separate personal and professional. They're the one thing. So it's really tough. So making sure that when I ask people how they're going, there's a big conversation about what's not wine and what's about them and where they are and how they're feeling. And up until a certain point, that probably wasn't what we invested enough time in. And I think now, as KB was saying, just refocusing on those things that are important. So you're trying to make sure that when we connect, we're doing it in the right way as well.
Fantastic. One of the things you mentioned there, which I wanted to touch on, I mean, we've all seen over the last few weeks a lot of, a range of short-term tactics in the restaurant industry. People really sort of actively, and sometimes desperately, trying to just sort of get a revenue stream. Some have been more successful than others. Obviously, we'll come to Kylie in a minute, but at Attica and the amazing things they've done. But, what longer term do you think the restaurants and the on-premise sort of aspect of wine sales at restaurants, what do you think that's going to look like?
That is the $1 million question at the moment, because we're still there's still 2 or 3 big shockwaves to come through the supply chain. Because when you push pause on the wine industry, pressure starts building up immediately. We almost have a vintage ready to be picked, or is in the middle of being harvested. We have stock unsold from last year because of the bushfires, and we missed out on a big push across the early part of this year. That places huge pressure, especially on a lot of the guys, especially in the wine distribution model. And both Kylie at Attica and Kylie at Mateo both deal with these guys who built their brands and their businesses and on-premise. They don't really have an off-premise focus. They're heavily weighted into restaurants and restaurant groups. So those guys and then they'll be following on from that will be the direct to winery relationships. And then following on from that, there'll be bigger shockwaves around credit and how much wine wholesalers can hold and how much they can afford to take on from restaurants who want to grow. So those all have they're big blocks in the supply chain. And I think until we've come to deal in terms of them, we're not going to really know how it's going to fall out. But what's going to stay, as Kylie was saying, is the idea that the people who can diversify their revenue streams, not their product, but their revenue streams, are the ones that are going to be built for success. Because if you took a restaurant that, like, again, to talk about Attica, it's like you took Attica and you can see what they're doing about diversifying revenue streams. That's kind of the model for me, because they're not altering their product. Everything they're doing is talking to what Attica still stands for, but it's adding revenue streams. And if you're not thinking about doing that now as a permanent part of your business in the immediate future, then you probably should really get onto that, because on-premise is going to shrink. And I can only speak for the wine side of things, but there'll be more wine, there'll be less restaurants, there'll be less revenue, there'll be fewer sommelier roles, unfortunately. and there'll be a cap on spending for the short term. So it's going to be really, really tough. So you need to start to find more levers to pull. And I think the idea about on-premise, what it looks like in the future, will be kind of be an amalgamation of all the things that are taking place now. I don't think you will see a brand in the future built solely on-premise ever again, because there's just not enough revenue there for a brand to go, do you know what? I'm going to stay away from Coles and Coles and Woolworths and fine wine retail, and I'm going to build it with chefs and restaurants. I don't think you'll be able to afford to do that, just because I think the volume is not going to be there for a long time.
It sort of brings us very nicely over to down to Kylie Stadden from Attica, the glue who holds everything together at Attica, and that's a lot of things these days. Kylie, 2 months ago, you were running a fine diner. You were running the operations for, arguably Australia's finest fine diner. And today it's takeaway and delivery. It's a high-end patisserie with a crazy pastry called Dave. It's a t-shirt shop, and it's a soup kitchen once a week. And as we discovered today, we've just heard that Attica has now launched a very significant degustation menu, which is sort of it involves some new dishes, some best of Attica dishes, along with the other 3 menus that Attica is already doing. And I just wondered, how did you make that work?
I'm still asking myself the same question, to be honest. I guess we've always, as a business, focused on quality and making sure things are done properly, whether that's things that we do for our guests or things that we do for our suppliers or for our staff. And that can sort of be translated into many different things. If you do something to the best of your ability and you do something with a lot of quality, then you can do that on a lasagna or a t-shirt or anything that you really set your mind to. So I guess we had that foundation. We have incredible staff who are flexible and intelligent, amazing, and they've really made that all possible as well. We sort of had no expectations coming into this about what it would be. We just knew that we needed to keep everyone employed. So in doing that, we've sort of worked backwards. We decided what sort of product we wanted to give, which was the same quality as what people expected from us, and what we needed to do to keep our staff employed. And then we just sort of decided on that and filled in the gaps afterwards and just really went straight into it. I think sometimes it can be overthought, especially when there's a crisis. You can overthink things, and sometimes you can underthink things as well. But we just sort of made a decision and went with it and worked hard and got our team on board, and it's paying off at the moment. So.
And the rest is history in the making, as we're witnessing now. Kylie, at Attica, you've got very strong relationships with, and you've had these all along with your suppliers. And I don't just mean your produce suppliers, although those are obviously very important, but sort of creative collaborators and also your behind the scenes people, sort of from you've had people who kind of bought into the Attica ethos, the Attica philosophy for a long time, and they've been there sort of alongside you to support you in this journey. And I just wondered whether those relationships really supported the pivot that you guys had to make, and how that happened.
Absolutely. I guess relationships are one of the most important things here, as you mentioned. We've always sort of prided ourselves on collaborating a lot with our suppliers and making sure that they're paid in time properly, which does help, especially in crisis situations, because everyone remembers that sort of thing. But we have had a lot of suppliers that are behind the scenes that really stepped up and really helped us. People with expert knowledge that we don't have. People like website designers and the people that run our reservation system, who also completely pivoted and designed a brand new takeaway home delivery ordering system. So I guess asking them to change their products can be slightly scary. You don't want to assume that they're able to just get up and help you immediately. But they've all been so responsive, and they want Attica, they want the whole restaurant industry to survive. They want everyone to get through this, and they're doing everything they can as well to help people get through this. and being able to rely on them for their expert knowledge, even in things that aren't even their job or what we pay them for. Our restaurant reservation system, Obi, the owner of that, and I've had a really long collaborative relationship with him as he's changed his model, his business and his programs a lot on what we need. And he was helping us out with things that are totally different software programs that I couldn't figure out myself, and he'd just jump on and do it for me. So it's that sort of thing. It's a collaboration. It's a true collaboration. They need restaurants to survive, and we need them to survive. So being able to rely on them and their expert knowledge has just been absolutely invaluable. We've also got, like, as you mentioned, a lot of artistic collaborators at Attica, people that inspire us and literally do art for the restaurant that we've used in the restaurant for courses, all of those sorts of things. And they've just been so incredible, donating their time sometimes, or severely reducing their fees to able to produce art for us to sell to keep people employed as well. So it's just been really wonderful to see people step up and help and really get behind the restaurant and want us to succeed. It's been really nice.
And while you're doing that with yourselves and wanting Attica to succeed, you're also reaching out and helping other people who are struggling, being in particular, I'm talking about the Attica Soup Project, and which is obviously designed to support visa workers who have no access to any of the other government support packages. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about and how you went about setting that up?
I guess since this all happened, we were really aware of the fact that there was going to be a lot of people that were suffering, especially a lot of people that were here unable to work and getting no government support. And Danny Vallant has been a strong advocate for people from other countries stuck here or unable to leave or get back home, or people that have decided to come over here and give their skills and time and knowledge to our community and then get stuck with nothing. So her and Ben had been talking about it for a long time, and it was at the time where social distancing was really just kicking in, and it was getting really intense, and we were wondering if we were going to be able to do it, have all these people come to the restaurant to collect food and not make sure our staff were safe and make sure they were safe as well, and make sure we didn't contribute to spreading of the disease. But we just organised it and did it. We just said this needs to happen. Danny and Ben get into the restaurant every Wednesday morning at 5 a.m. to cook the soup, and it's all given out on the Thursday by them as well. And it's not a really large volume of soup that we're doing, but it's probably about 60 people each week. And just to make such a difference to those people, I helped last week giving out the soup, and it was very humbling. And I guess every time we think that we've got it hard, I think about a lot of people that can literally not afford to eat and can't afford to get back to their home country. It's an outrage that there's not more being done about it. But I guess there's a lot of hospitality businesses that are stepping up now and helping. Like Kylie said, even just sending out food to the chefs that worked there, and that all helps. So anything people can do is brilliant.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that work, because everyone appreciates it, I think. I want to come back to Chris now, if I can. And Chris, I want to go back to your role, even though you are, as we know, an author and an educator and a judge and various other things in the wine space. You are first and foremost a sommelier, and I think that is the thing that's closest to your heart. But what are the skills that you have and sommeliers have in general, and how are you using, how can they be sort of brought to the fore and become really useful in a time of crisis and a time of difficulty in a restaurant as a business with a skill?
Yeah, the challenge sommeliers have always faced, I think, in Australia in particular, and I've been lucky enough to work overseas in London for Terence Conran as a sommelier in the late 90s, and I've seen a few kind of what you consider boom bust cycles. Like I was I was a sommelier in 91, in 99 in London, where the tech bubble burst in 2008 during the GFC, and nothing's prepared us for now. Nothing has given me a toolkit of things I can subtly apply and make this better for anyone I work with or any one of my colleagues in the industry. But it's a skill set. And one of the things that you kind of have to go through crisis to learn how to crisis manage. And everyone's learning on the job now, in terms of, especially for the younger generation of sommeliers who are really the future for our industry. I mean, these guys who are coming into roles now are going to shape the conversation around our profession for the next generation. And so they should. I mean, and we'll probably talk a little bit later, but obviously KB mentioned mentoring, and that's something obviously that I'm really passionate about as well. But the skill set and the sort of the knowledge base that a sommelier has been employing for decades really hasn't had a big discussion about it. Largely, we've been discussed because of our wine knowledge or wine expertise, and that's always been put to the fore. But as you said, Sal, like business management, marketing, even copywriting, training and development, accountancy, all these things sort of form a big part of the sommelier skill set. And today, I would say, as I sit here talking to you, that wine knowledge is about 10% of what we need right now. I mean, wine knowledge I've always believed that we have more good wine available to us at a better price at any time in the history of the wine industry. But what we need now is sommeliers who are able to pull back. Do you know what I mean? Like to broaden the focus, rather than just focus on their training and development, which is crucial, which has driven a lot of their value and worth in terms of the restaurant product offer. But behind the scenes, and this is kind of, I think, what we're talking about, is how do we make that dollar that we're going to earn now, the focus on that dollar is how many we put in the till, it's how much money we make per dollar. Because margin, with a reduced revenue environment for us in particular, a lot of the focus will be about cost management and margins. So sommeliers control largely the highest revenue and profitability revenue for a restaurant under really harsh focus. And as we start to open up and as we start to think wine sales, especially if there's a retail arm attached, we'll have to take that. We have a really strong focus on how that off-premise and on-premise approach work together. And to do that, a sommelier needs to start really taking a good long look at how retail models work. Not ones that are attached to on-premise, but unfortunately, look at Woolworths and Coles, look at your local fine wine retailer. You need to understand how to make wine work in a lower margin environment, especially when margins are the thing you need to drive. Of course, there's lower labour costs, there'll be hours being cut back, there'll be overheads still to pay, but there'll be less operating costs behind wine. But the margins and the price points that you'll be able to charge people, particularly through a retail model, will be much lower. But the one thing we won't do is enter a discount culture, I don't think, because a discount culture you can never unwind. But I think that skill set around learning about retail more, and in particular learning about streaming, how to communicate through digital and social channels. Those things are huge because that adds a massive weight to what's going to be a very cluttered channel within the next few months. Everyone's going to have a social and content channel pushing their product. So to cut through, I think the guys who know how to do that really well, or employ people who do, will be the ones that have the greatest chance of success.
Yeah, well, obviously, you talk not so much about the content and things in your book, but you're very focused on the things that are not necessarily the obvious skills of a sommelier in terms of what they can do. In your book, if anyone knows or doesn't know, it's called This Is Not a Wine Guide. It's a fantastic book about the role of the sommelier. But you talk there a lot about, and I think this is going to become really, really important, about mentoring and how important it's been to you in your career, but also how it should be a really important part of every sommelier's career. So I'm just wondering right now in the current situation, how should we be talking, or how are you talking, or how we should be talking to the younger people in the industry about those future careers, given, you know, every industry is affected by this, but it feels a little, you know, it's a fraught time. So how do we talk to those people?
That's probably, for me, the hardest part, at the moment is kind of knowing, it's kind of I know what the answer is. I know how I want to make that person feel. I know how I want them to feel about their job. But for me, putting together the right words to say sometimes is tough because everyone's different. Regardless of the fact you're part of a singular profession, everyone has different wants and needs from it. Some people are sommeliers for the craft, and some people love the idea of being a student and the knowledge and the expertise. Some people just love restaurants, and like me, they fell into wine, and wine became kind of their thing. Importantly, what I think with mentoring for me, and KB could jump in on this because she works with so many great mentors and mentorees, is that for me, I try not to dilute what I can teach someone. I like to find one person in particular who I feel I can see. I don't sort of see myself in them, but I see the potential in them. And what I like to do is like to have a very direct, frank conversation with that person about what their strengths and weaknesses are and how I would like to help. But being a mentor for me is something that I think is you got to be all in. I don't think you can half mentor someone. You have to actually be all in on it, and that means being in regular contact. It means providing them with learning tools and advice that is built around developing their career, not just kind of ticking a box in regards to I need to be managing this person today. And that's, I think, for mentoring, the big difference is there's leaders and there's managers, and anyone can manage. I think to be a leader and a mentor, I mean, that takes a certain kind of skill set. And I think mentors and like the mentoree and the relationship are kind of unique. I mean, and KB, again, you could probably tell me more about this than anyone, but you kind of have to line up a mentor and a mentoree, don't you, to get the very best out of that relationship?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. And that's why we relaunched, and Lisa Hobbs and Claire Van, I can't pronounce her surname, sorry. They did exactly that. We put out like applications for both mentors and mentees to, if you would like to apply. And then those two with Julia, our founder, then actually literally put a grid together and then matched up the right people. And that's why it's been running for 3 months now, and it's just been so successful because a lot of thought has gone into it. And exactly what you say, like there's a difference between a manager and a mentor. And like some people who did apply, yeah, perfect managers, but just don't fit into that guide of what a mentor should look like. And also we found last year when I was sort of looking after the mentor program as well, like a lot of people would just approach and go, I want help with my business. And it's like, that's not what a mentor is. We're not here to basically, someone had a struggling business and I was chatting with them, like, what should I do? It's like, we're not here to give you financial advice and to, help or fix your business. We're here to just, mentor you and support you and, give you, and, be critical as well on what they do and the same back. Like it just has to be, like you said, a very, very honest conversation. And I know that's what our mentor, we did a Zoom in with the mentor and mentees last week and had a happy hour. So that was really great just to have, they were talking about what they were really enjoying and just saying some had got, one was saying, oh, I'm struggling with my mentee at the moment because she had been stood down, she wasn't working, and was asking all these questions about COVID-19, and the mentor was like, we don't know, like, unfortunately, and I think that's the struggle at the moment, like none of us know, like literally every day changes. It's like, last Friday we weren't in phase 1, and then come Sunday, right, it's being announced we're in phase 1, and you've got to act so proactive, like that's, in 4 days you need to be ready, like so yeah, I think probably more so now than ever, mentoring is going to be really super important for the young generation, because like the industry is never going to be the same again. And what they, like you said, Chris, they might have had a goal to be a sommelier, but is there really going to be that need for that many of them now in restaurants? Because just what does a future career in hospitality for someone young look like now?
Yeah.
Do you guys envisage that everyone in hospitality will need that multi-skill set? I guess that's a question for all of you. Like if we're not going to have, you know, this kind of the ability to have these distinct outlined roles like a sommelier, and if wine knowledge becomes part of everyone's remit, how do we then tap into the things like the understanding of retail, or the background understanding of industry, or the building of wine lists, and equally in front of house or back of house? You know, I guess all of these, as we know, are highly specialized pieces of knowledge, but are we going to be asking everyone to be a jack of all trades, do you think, for some time now?
I would probably say yes. I know that there'll be roles that'll be we're going to lose out of our business, as Kylie said, and won't come back for the immediate future. I think in terms of recruitment around wine, there'll be a different skill set that's required, and wine knowledge will form a smaller part of it. I think we will absolutely look for people out of different backgrounds to come into wine, as we should have had for a long time before this. But I think COVID is proving that there's a lot of white noise being drowned out now, and what we're refocusing on are the things that are probably going to be important to the business post-COVID. But I've actually, I'm quite selfish. I like to hack into Kylie S and Attica's approach to how they've done it, so I can learn something. Because obviously there's different arms emerging in Attica, and for a large hospitality group and a medium and a small, diversification in revenue and product is something that I think we're all going to have to relearn. So can I ask Kylie S as to how she approached that for Attica?
How we approach the different revenue streams, is that what you mean, Chris? Yeah, I guess it was a necessity, to be really honest. The thing that was driving us was the fact that we had 40 full-time staff here that were relying on us to keep paying their wages, and anything else was less difficult than having to sit down with them and say that they didn't have a job anymore, in all honesty. So I guess it was a necessity. We just thought about the skills that we had collectively as a business. We're very lucky that we have a lot of people here with really diverse interests and backgrounds, and people that can make pottery, and designers, and all these different sorts of things. So we just sort of sat down and assessed our skill pool and what we have available here, and how people can best bring different things to the business to help keep it afloat. And everyone was really involved in it. Everyone was coming up with heaps of different ideas, and it was really a team effort, including all of the staff as well. They were all incredibly flexible, as I said before. And we just did it. I think, as I said before, there's a lot of thought goes into things, and that can be great if you're starting a new business from scratch. But we just didn't have the luxury of being able to, I guess, plan it as well as we needed to, or as we put as much time into it initially as we needed to. But that kind of worked to our advantage. I think sometimes just doing something and just getting it done can be a lot more effective. I think we launched our takeaway and delivery service really quickly, just because we knew that we needed to keep paying the bills, and it's really turned into something that's really amazing. We've had a few people, I guess, sort of hint at the fact that we're sort of doing something that's like less than what Attica is, or less than what Attica was, and it's not that at all. It's everything that we're doing is exactly the same level of care, exactly the same people making it, exactly the same skill level required. But we're just getting to a lot more people. We're seeing a lot more people from different backgrounds, people that might not have been able to afford to come to Attica before. And we're also seeing people that maybe have small kids and they're at home and they can't go out to restaurants. So it's actually really nice to see all these different people that we haven't had a chance to meet before. So that's sort of going off topic a little bit, but there is some positives to it as well. And I guess that's awesome. Sort of been what we've been trying to focus on, is the positives instead of the negatives.
Yeah.
I'm going to come to some questions from our audience, but there is one to Kylie, and I'll ask that to you now, and then I've got one for Chris after that on the wine. But Kylie, how did you get word out about Attica's new direction? How did you create noise and get attention from the new and current audiences?
Yeah, We used Instagram a lot. Ben has gotten right on board the Instagram train and he started really enjoying it actually, which is something that we've never really used as a publicity thing before. It's always been just to sort of share our journey with our guests. But there's been a lot of that. We have also, before all of this pandemic went down, we engaged the crew to help with PR, and that was a really good move, because probably about 2 months after that, we found ourselves in this situation. So just having those experts around, it's outsourcing, I guess. It's knowing when something is beyond your capabilities and being able to pay someone else to do it and do a better job than you could possibly do. I think it's finding that balance. There's not a lot of money in the business at the moment, so it's really deciding where we can spend that money and how to best get value for it, and hiring people like website designers or like people from PR or multiple other experts. It's really integral.
Yeah. Great. Chris, a wine question for you from someone who I think is known to you, Mr. Ian Riggs from Brokenwood. Chris, will there be more interest in Aussie vino for on-premise post this, or will everyone go straight back to imported?
A beautiful leading question from one of the Hunter Valley's leading winemakers. Thank you, Riggsy. 100%. There will be a focus on local wines. I think not just simply around sustainability, but just the amount of hands that touch a bowl of wine from vineyard to, I guess, touch point with customer. People are just going to want less. They want a less distance between the bottle and the glass. I don't think imported will come back in the way we've experienced it recently. I think for a generation. And when I say a generation, I mean like a hospitality generation, which is, if you look at the guys who are 17 or 18 years of age now, so in about 10 years' time, these guys will be potentially group wine directors, head sommeliers, restaurateurs, business owners, and they'll shape potentially a culture around wine that's less risk adverse. But up until that point, there's going to be a lot of people managing wine programs that are going to remember COVID and be dealing with the reality of a post-COVID wine industry. So we won't have the same risk involved. But when I say risk, is you have to charge a lot of money on imported wine to make money from it. And we're just going to have a spending ceiling put in place. And it'll be a really hard ceiling for the immediate future. I just don't see how imported wine categories, with all the tariffs and all the premium pricing that we have to attach to them to make them profitable for a restaurant, will actually fly. And unfortunately, I'm on the Riggsy boat. I hope Hunter Valley comes back big time.
Right, we've lost Chris's vision for the moment, but I'm sure we'll get him back. But I might ask, there's another question for Chris, but I'm actually going to forward it to Kylie Ball, which is, will restaurants keep, and it's from Ian Riggs again, will restaurants keep their retail side after this, both wine and food takeaway? And I'm just wondering if you can answer that because of your the reality of what you're about to sort of launch with effectively a new business model.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think coming back to what Kylie was saying, I think really this is one of the positive things that's come out of this. It's actually quite exciting. Like, you know, we've just rebuilt a whole brand new brand with the takeaway business, which, you know, with my directors, they were had said that they'd always wanted to do that, but they didn't want to affect the Mateo brand. So now we've got a whole new website called Mateo Casa, so Mateo at home, and it will just keep growing, I think, because there are still going to be a lot of people who won't go out for a long time, and especially I think it's really important now, not knowing what the phases are. Like, we don't know when the next phase of 20 people into 100. So I think it's really important to have these takeaway and retail businesses. And I know a lot of people who are really like surprised at how well, you know, they're sort of doing from them now as well. And like, just to use Claire as an example from WOHO, like she had to put people off and then she started doing takeaway and she was able to re-employ people again. So I think there's that side of people, and also just trying to earn some money so we can, you know, you can start paying off some of the bills and pay stuff and pay suppliers and just yeah, keep the business running. Like we had a 7-week turn, and it was like, because we just wanted to see what was happening, and then the JobKeeper came in, which was, you know, a godsend. And then we were like, right, and everyone was just texting the boys, there's three directors, and just going, we missed you so much, like, when are you coming back? So last week we did takeaway for the first weekend, and you know, we did 10,000 in 3 days, which I think is pretty good for, you know, just and I think that will just continue to grow.
Carly Staven, do you think you'll keep the sort of the hybrid of some of the at-home offerings as what, if and when Attica goes back to perhaps what it was, or a new version of what it was?
I was going to ask that too, because essentially you guys are running then multiple businesses, right? Which is fantastic from a revenue stream perspective, but it's tough because you're running different business models, where you were running one that was quite linear, but now you know, you've got the same team with a divided focus. Like, how does that feel as someone who's in operations? It must be tough.
It is. I guess we're in Victoria, we're a little bit different. Restaurants haven't been allowed to open yet, and they'll be reassessing that in about 3 weeks, I think. So at the moment, we're happy just continuing what we're doing. We've really, as I said before, we've really enjoyed being able to access or have interactions with other people that we might not have got a chance to. We were only serving 300 people a week at the old Attica, and it's really nice to be able to see a whole lot of new faces. So it's definitely something that we would like to continue. But as you said, Janine, it's a little bit difficult splitting the focus of the team. We've only got a certain number of people, and we have managed to hire quite a few new people since this all started, just to cope with the volume. But it is definitely something challenging. It's something that we've been thinking about a lot. What happens when we can have 20 people in the restaurant? Like, I can't see us being able to survive like that, just doing that, because it's not feasible. Our previous business was based on the restaurant being full every night, and 20 people's not enough to keep that running. So we've got so many different options at the moment, and that's what we're thinking about. We're trying to keep positive and sort of roll with the punches and see what happens. But we've seen that there is a demand for this takeaway. I think even if people were able to go out to restaurants again, there's a lot of people that would prefer to stay home and just watch Netflix. There's people that are unable to get out of their houses for various different reasons. And I think Attica at Home is definitely a lot more affordable than coming into the restaurant. So I think there's definitely a market for it, and we'll explore that moving into the future.
Great. Chris, I have another wine question from Nick Blair. Hi, Chris. How do you think licensing will change in the future? Do you think OLGR will continue to allow takeaway or online liquor sales for on-premise businesses? First of all, you better explain what OLGR is, Chris.
Office of Liquor, Gaming and Racing. And the Overwatch, overlord of everything to do with selling alcohol in our industry. Nick makes a great point, and it just goes to show, and there's so many examples of this during this time, is so many things that we have spent years trying to do can actually be done once you're drown out a lot of the red tape and white noise out of the process. And here that we've an ability to sell product direct to customer is it's not new. We've wanted to do this before. Chefs and restaurateurs have put this on the table at times before. We've been painted into a corner at this point, and I think that's what's great about having this brief window of relaxing the laws around being able to sell direct to customer. I think the direct to customer model is crucial to hospitality success in the future. I think we need it. It enables, as Kylie was saying, to re-employ people. It enables hospitality to keep moving. And I mean, we all know this as the ripple effect of hospitality is so many other industries that hospitality is a hub for. It's not just us. Like in wine, it's not just the sommelier is a hub for wine suppliers, distributors, restaurateurs, chefs. Like, we're at the nexus of so many different industries. We need to pull on every lever we possibly can to continue to drive revenue. And I think it'd be absolutely madness not to let restaurants sell direct to customers for the immediate future, both wine and food.
And well, I suppose we'll find out sort of what the reality of that's going to look like in sort of, weeks and months to come. I think it's probably time to sort of come to the end of this, but I want to ask everyone really what their sort of biggest learning, such an American term, but just their biggest takeaway from what we've been going through, what they've been going through with their businesses, and what's something sort of positive that they've taken out of it. I think there's a lot of positive. Kylie Staten said so many positive things about how Attica's found these incredible new audiences of people who didn't have access to the restaurant for one reason or another. Chris has probably had time to connect with his team in ways which I'm sure they appreciate. Kylie Ball, I know that you've been busy behind the scenes with all your networking and industry contacts, but what are your takeaways, if you like, from what we're going through that would be something you'd want to share with everyone sort of listening in today? Kylie Ball.
Well, I think probably the takeaway is probably a very big, a big thing. I guess I never in my career probably thought I'd be working somewhere where we would be doing takeaway, like in terms of just where the venues and things I've worked in. But I think just what Chris was saying, just about being creative with getting new revenue streams and everything like that. And that's probably the biggest take home from me. I think, like I said, it's actually an exciting time. And I think to really, like you said, just really use this time to. It's like just sort of starting up a new business, which who wouldn't want to start up, or who wouldn't want. But for me, that was always like a career highlight, and what I love doing, like startups and getting something up and running and creating that team and working with the marketing team, like on branding. And our marketing manager is incredible. Like she's marketing, she's got a whole new website, and she was saying, "Oh my God, you're amazing!" And like she's like, "Oh, you know what? I've always wanted to do this, and I've had time to do it." So.
Yeah, that's amazing that she allowed her to like flex her skill.
Yeah, and she just did it, and it's incredible.
Yeah. Kylie Staten?
Mm-hmm. I guess my main takeaway is being able to rely on the people around you, staff and suppliers and producers and the guests as well, and your friends and family. It's taught me a lot about the people in our team and what they're capable of and how much they care about the restaurant. And I guess that will help moving forward with recruitment as well. I feel like we're on the right path. Sometimes it's hard to sort of know, like you've got a really great group of people around you and they do their job really well, but when stuff all goes to hell, you really see who people truly are. And I guess trying to focus on that, which we do anyway, but we always hire for attitude as opposed to skill level, but just focusing on that more in the future and getting a more diverse group of people in is always a good thing, like we try to do anyway. But yeah, I think relying on the people around you and asking them questions and asking for their support, I think that's something that I'm going to use a lot more moving into the future.
Fantastic. And
I actually 100% agree with that, Kylie. I think, sorry to just, you've seen the good and the bad through people during this, and who's been there, as a good supporter, and who's, so I 100%.
Yeah.
And Chris, what about you?
I was actually reading something the other day, and there's this one line that was pulled out of this person's quote. It was talking about what we're going through now, and the quote was, "Adversity is a terrible thing to waste." And I think that's, for me, I'm non-confrontational about a lot of stuff, and I've shied away from things that have been awkward or hard to discuss. I think what this has done is forced me into a place where I have to have conversations with people that normally I probably wouldn't. I've had to be more open and more honest, and I think that's something I hope me and my industry doesn't lose. I think it's been a very raw kind of experience for everyone. And I look at like what Kylie S said, like, and what Ben's doing and what she's doing out there. And it's like these kind of, sometimes when you're painted into a corner, people can, like, sometimes they wilt, and some people just spread their wings. You know what I mean? And I think you see these kind of people now emerging, and they're the people that are going to build our industry. So when I say adversity is a terrible thing to waste, I'd always want to remember what the good things are to come out of this. And those are kind of the people like Ben and Kylie.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all. I'll just hand over to Janine.
Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us, and sorry for going slightly over time, but really appreciate the expertise from all three of you, and that you're all incredibly busy gearing up to either come out of hibernation or keep rolling with new stuff in the case of Kylie S. Good luck with it all, and we really look forward to seeing how it keeps evolving. We have another crewing conversation this time next week, and we'll be promoting that over our channels in the next 24 hours. So please tune in and register again, and keep sending questions through. And we'll also have this link available for everyone to watch if they weren't able to join us live. So thank you again for your time, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.